Welcome to the Addiction Connection podcast, connecting the hope of the gospel with the heart of addiction. I'm Mark Shaw, joined by Jim Quigley. Howdy, Jim.
Howdy, Mark.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Hey. Hey, we're going to talk about a real serious subject that you and I are both going to be tempted to go on rants about. And so we may rant this one out.
I don't know why you would say that about me. I never go on any kind of a rant whatsoever. I don't struggle with that, Mark. So
you don't have a rant disorder or disease? No. Not at all.
I take pills for that.
Acts 19, verse 27. And in context, just for listeners, this man named Demetrius, who's a silversmith, makes silver shrines of Artemis, which is statue of Diana, represented pagan worship and prostitution, cult prostitution, so prostitution in front of people, as a part of worship, all this wicked stuff in Ephesus, and so I want to read this. This is Acts 19. I'm going to start in verse 25. Because this kind of hits on what we're going to talk about in an interesting way. These he gathered together with the workmen in similar trades and said, "Men." So this is Demetrius talking to other silversmiths in their trade. So this is not a Christian guy talking. He's talking to other silversmiths. He says, "Men, you know that from this business we have our wealth." All right. And you see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but in almost all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away a great many people, saying that gods made with hands are not gods. Verse 27, and there is danger not only that this trade of ours may come into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis may be counted as nothing, and that she may even be disposed from her magnificence, she whom all Asia and the world worship. And so they heard that, they were enraged and really mad at Paul for preaching the gospel. And so I thought that was an interesting parallel into our topic today about psychotropic drugs and big pharma and all that's going on there. And this, the censor police may try to censor this kind of thing. But I think it's important for us to talk about, but our passage there, isn't it interesting that Demetrius is telling them, guys, this hurts our wealth, but bigger than that, people are not going to worship the goddess Artemis. And this guy, Paul's saying that these aren't real gods that we're making.
How dare he?
I mean, the gall of Paul. So launching into psychotropic meds, a study, an article came out in Psychology Today, secular article, not Christian, said that the deficiency of serotonin in the body that has believed to be causing depression is not true. That's been a theory. And it's been proven not to be true. In fact, they even did studies where people ate foods that, they didn't eat foods that sparked serotonin production in their bodies. So they would have lower serotonin, and they weren't depressed any more than the other group. And so research is coming out. People are writing books. These aren't Christian people, and they're all trying to say now, we never believed the imbalance theory. We never believed that serotonin was deficient in people, and that's what was causing depression. But certainly they did, and they were prescribing SSRI medication, psychotropic drugs, to help people who had a serotonin deficiency. And I'll say this before I let you talk. You don't rant. I forgot. Sorry.
I don't do that. Mark.
I just went to the IABC conference and spoke, and I asked everybody, I presented it in such a way, I said, have any of you heard of the serotonin deficiency imbalance theory for depression? And everyone in there raised their hand. And then I said, have you heard the latest research is showing that's not even true. It's not even a real thing. It was all along a theory, and it actually has been proven not to be true. And they were shocked. These were counselors. These were people from around the country. I mean, not all of them. Some of them had already heard because they research and hear this. This is their area of interest. But a lot of people had not heard about this. So, Jim, take it away. What are some of your thoughts about this serotonin deficiency lie?
Well, so I've been on quite a journey with this. I'll just so everybody knows, I have personally been prescribed Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapro, and Celexa. I've been on Trazodone. Those are all, I think, the ones that I can remember that were primarily for depression. So I've taken a lot of these medications.
This is personal for you.
Personal, yeah. I mean, when I go on rants and people were like, "Calm down, man." I have to be careful because I will get in the flesh because I feel personally offended by this because I was personally diagnosed bipolar disorder number 2. I was on, when I came to Freedom Farm, I had just left my 3rd psychiatrist, and I'm not making this up. I was on Prozac. I was on Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic medication. I was on the largest dose of Seroquel you can take, a 300 milligram pill that I was to take every night before bed. I was on Prozac, Seroquel. I was on Klonopin for anxiety. I was given Suboxone for my problem with relapsing. Suboxone is an opiate, but it has a healing effect. We can talk about that another time. I was also on Celexa, and I think I was also on Resperdon, which was something for anger. And I was on all those medications, and I had been prescribed those from another psychiatrist and just given increases in them the more I would have episodes that would lead me to the hospital or into seeing a psychiatrist again. They would just increase a lot of what I already had. And just so everybody knows, I have not taken a medication for almost 12 years now. I stopped taking all of those meds, and so what does that have to say? Did all of my diagnosis magically disappear? Or maybe you just see podcast, Jim, and I'm just a raving lunatic and uncontrollable all the time. But no. So I say all that to say I kind of have a personal, like, I'm offended by that world because my visits to psychiatrists were 10 minutes. They never made eye contact. They just wrote. They just asked questions and wrote down things. And it was. I mean, I really never believed anybody was really doing anything but going through some kind of a routine with me, and it was all very normal. It's just, there was people lined up in the office getting the same treatment as me. And I look back on that and I was like, man, that's just, I don't know what those drugs are actually even doing to me. And this is where the offense comes in. I start learning about biblical counseling, and in fact, when you start studying biblical counseling, you start learning. I mean, you're just in that network, and you're learning more about stuff. So I started to pay more attention about that world and their therapies and treatments. And they didn't know what those medications were doing to me. They cannot tell you for sure what those medications were doing to you. They can't.
The mechanism of action is unknown, is
right.
What it will say. They don't know what it's doing in your body.
And specifically, when you say serotonin, right? Serotonin level.
Right, for depression.
So for depression, we're back on that. You know, when you shared with all the counselors at the IABC conference that we were at, when you shared with them and they said, have you heard about this chemical imbalance? But everybody raised their hand. That's in the article too. 90% of people believe factual that depression is linked to a deficiency of serotonin levels in your body. But when I found out, they don't know what a normal serotonin level in a body is.
No, right.
They don't. There is no normal that they can say, hey, this is normal, and we can see you're below normal, so we're going to give you medication to bring you back up normal. There's no way to prove any of that.
No.
They can't give you a blood test to test what your serotonin levels are. And if they were, they still don't know what a normal level is.
Right.
And they don't know if they give you the medication, if it was increasing your serotonin levels. So they've known that forever.
Yep.
And that is one of the most offensive things, because, you know, when people they're just saying, oh yeah, this is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and this will increase serotonin levels in your body. They don't follow up with, well, we think that's what's going to happen. We hope that's what's going to happen. We're praying that's what, oh no, we don't pray because we don't believe that we need God in this. This pill's going to make you feel better, you know? So that when I start telling people that, they look at me and they're like, you've got to be just some kind of like fanatic, you know, right-wing fanatic or something, because that can't possibly be true, Jim. Like, they have to know what a serotonin level is. They have to know that it increases. They have to know all those things. And it's like, no, they actually don't know that stuff. And that's scary. And you know what most people, what a lot of people don't know too, is that SSRIs, weren't they, now I'm speaking off the cuff, and I don't know the facts about this, but I don't know if it was the first FDA drug to have a black box label put on it. Was it the first FDA
Prozac
drug?
I think it was. Yeah, it definitely had a black box label.
Yeah, the black box label saying that if you give this to people that are like youth, it actually has a danger of increasing suicidal tendencies in people.
Right. Increasing it.
You're
suicidal. Here's a black box drug. It might make you more suicidal.
Maybe
not.
It also might increase your serotonin levels, but it might not. But now they're just saying, you know what, serotonin and the imbalance of it, we're just saying that has nothing to do with depression now.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally, the first time I was given, this was probably illegal, but the first time I was given Prozac, I was 12 years old. The first time I was given Prozac. I'm 46.
Wow.
I'm 46 years old.
Wow.
So 34 years ago,
wow.
I was given my first Prozac, and that drug has been around, and now after 34 years, 90% of the people in this country are convinced that serotonin deficiency is a cause of depression. And now the people that were doing all of this all wrong are saying, yeah, we got that one wrong.
Yeah.
The word that keeps, the phrase that keeps coming to mind is, I wonder if this is going to be kind of like the beginning of the end for that whole world, you know? I mean, there's another thing people don't realize. Like, psychiatry has not been around that long, okay? When it comes to the sciences, it's pretty new.
Yeah.
And so this stuff is still in the very beginning stages of medicine and science and all that stuff. And I kind of wonder if we're going to discover more and more that the emperor just has no clothes here, you know? I think you froze up there.
Did I?
No, you didn't. Anyway, I think, you know, I wrote a thing on Facebook about when I put this article on there, and I said on Facebook, I said, I wonder what kind of traction we're going to get once we start hearing the stories of how these medications have harmed people. Nobody's talking about that yet.
Right.
At this point, we're saying, hey, you know what? It has nothing to do with depression. But millions of people are on this medication. And what happens if you stop taking this medication? You go through physical withdrawal. I mean, so it's obviously doing something to your body. You go through painful withdrawal on some of these medications.
You're raising an interesting point, and almost 33 years ago, September 14th, 1989, the largest mass shooting ever in the state of Kentucky, where I live. 47-year-old guy killed 8 people and injured 12 at his former workplace before he committed suicide. So he went in, deadliest mass shooting in Kentucky history. And the reason I know it was about 33 years ago, because we're close to September now, is that Eli Lilly and their company, the manufacturers of Prozac, reportedly paid each family $100,000 in 1989, which was a gobs of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now, but back then it was a lot of money. Big settlement with every family in there. And the agreement was, we're going to keep it quiet for 30 years. You can't talk about Prozac and this guy being on it. And so however many families, whatever, they agreed, they all got $100,000, and it didn't come out until a few years ago, after the 30-year sealing, whatever the right term for that is. Once it was able to be talked about and open, then it came out that, oh, this guy was on Prozac. Well, wouldn't it have been nice to know 30 years ago? Yeah. But it didn't come out, and I read an article, and then somebody told me about something Tucker Carlson did. I haven't seen it, about I read were like 75% of mass shooters are on 30 to 40 different medications. I mean, it's only like 30 or 40 of them. And so most of your mass shooters are on those kinds of psychotropic meds. And you named a bunch that you were on. I didn't know all that. Man, they were giving you everything, including, Seroquel, but you were on all those drugs. And I've had friends tell me, and people in counseling tell me, when I'm on Prozac, I'm more suicidal, or when I'm on this med, I hear voices. And now they're saying the antipsychotic drugs induce Parkinson's disease for people. And so you and I are Davids going up against Goliath. My concern is with the psychotropic drugs. Yeah.
I actually, I won't mention his name, but a professor that you and I both know that teaches a class on biblical counseling and physiology. I believe during his class, he shared with us that just in the recent years, I guess it's Eli Lilly, you said, makes Prozac?
They did, yeah, in 89.
Yeah, through FOIA requests, Freedom of Information. They were able to go back and see the original FDA process when it came to Prozac. And back then the process was they had to give two studies. They had to show proof from 2 studies that this was an effective drug. And so they did. They showed 2 studies that they did where I think it was reported 42 or 44% of people reported symptom relief by taking the medication. And so that's how Prozac originally got onto the market. But the Freedom of Information Act request showed that there was something like 8 or 12 other studies that they did that showed the opposite.
Wow.
So they cherry picked the 2 and got it on the market when they had all these other ones that showed the opposite.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Oh, well, and you know, in reading about that shooting, I mean, the guy just walks in, he shoots people. He's just he's kind of zombied out, you know. He's numb to what's going on and just sort of and surely he's accountable for his choices. We get that. But how much did these drugs or Prozac in this case impact him and influence his thought? uh you know, I don't know, but I think there's some culpability there, some responsibility for the drug companies.
But the scary thing is, in just that statement, like I would not feel comfortable blaming that drug. I don't, you, like you said, I don't know, but they don't know either. That's the thing. Like they don't know. The people that got it in the market, the people that prescribe it, they don't really know. That's the scary thing. They just think. It's possible. It's, you know, I mean, where do these doctors that prescribe these medications, what is the basis of their justification for giving them? It's all self-reporting from the individual taking the drug.
Right.
That's really the only basis that they use to justify these medications, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we just gave you this thing and we think it does this. How do you feel? Well, I don't feel as anxious anymore as I did. Okay, great. You know, it's working, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, and I know I'm making a much more simplistic argument to something that is probably more complicated. Oh, well, not probably, that is more complicated. But you know, I'm not being simplistic by saying that ultimately they don't know because they can't test these levels. They can't test the efficacy of the drug beyond self-reporting. They don't know what other parts of the brain are that it may be affecting because they're not looking for it to affect those other parts of the brain. You know, it kind of reminds you of the big claim to fame when they said that the human genome project, is that what it's called, the human genome project, where they were going to be able to get DNA all mapped out and then they were just going to cure everything, you know?
Yeah.
And you know what happened? So imagine that, you know, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, can you cure people's desires that come from your heart? Or do we need a supernatural life-giving spirit to give us a new heart and to give us the enablement to change and transform, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going with God on this one.
Yes. Well, I think the article that Tucker Carlson did, and it was let me pull it up. He actually,
I heard he attacked the Alzheimer's medications they're giving out too. He says that.
Well, yeah, that's something else I want to talk to you about. So Tucker Carlson, drugs are not the answer to every human problem. That's the name of this article. And then he has a video about that, where drugs are not the answer to every human problem. But so I'm glad. I don't think he's a believer, but he
claims to be an Episcopalian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've heard him say that many times. So.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't really watch him, but he's kind of popular. But you know, so the Alzheimer's study, I just pulled that up. In 2006, there was apparently a big study that on Alzheimer's and what was causing it and so forth. Well, a scientist who is, I think his name is Schrag, he's 37. He is a whistleblower who did some sleuthing and saw that there's possible misconduct. I want to be careful how I say this, but that they had falsified or made the medical study, the way that they were doing it, made it look like it was, you know, lit up and brighter than it really was. And this kind of thing didn't happen by accident. And so he's calling them out, and other people are starting to research it and say, yeah, here we thought this study was accurate. It's not, probably falsified is the conclusion that I'm making from reading this. And here's the thing, billions of dollars went down this path following this 2006 article that was published, and they just poured money into research on something that wasn't even true. So again, taxpayer dollars spent, just frivolously, really. No, they didn't mean for it to be. That's the way it ended up. At the time, they thought, okay, let's follow this lead. Let's follow this research. But this evidence-based research myth that everything needs to be evidence-based is exactly that. And so now, all these years, that's 16 years ago, there's been lots of research that's been done under a false pretense that's gone the wrong direction, whereas those monies could have gone into studying Alzheimer's and trying to really help people. And it's just sad to me to read this kind of thing. But again, we can't have hope in any human institution or organization or entity, even our own government, our own, this and that in government. I mean, we don't need to have hope in any of that. My only hope is in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, amen, brother. Amen. The human the human nature factor in pretty much anything must be considered, and that's another thing that's pretty hard as a believer to deal with, because the secular world, for the most part, believes in the inherent goodness of human beings, that everybody, really has everybody's best interests at heart, which
right.
doesn't line up with Scripture at all. But the problem is that, I mean, I wouldn't put a number on it, but I would say that a large part of Christianity, self-professing Christians, believe the same thing, like that right. most people are all inherently good and have everybody's best interests at heart. So a lot of times the fact that doesn't factor into large studies and whatnot, when there's lots of money involved, like you said. We know from Scripture that money is a root of all kinds of evil, and so it doesn't shock me when I hear. It saddens me, like you said, that people that have been tempted with large sums of money will do anything to keep it flowing, and they'll even falsify documents on something that people, if anybody's ever had a loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that, it's probably one of the saddest diseases I've ever seen. Oh, yeah. And to watch people talk about it, and to watch people talk about their loved ones that are currently struggling with it or did, your heart breaks for them.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm in a Bible study on Wednesdays with a gentleman that just lost his wife, and he come to pray with us on Wednesdays, and he said, my wife hasn't known who I was for the past 3 years, and she almost screams and gets scared when I come in the room.
Wow.
And they were living at an assisted living facility together. He had his own room because he lived right next to her, and it's just so sad,
Yeah, we've had two gentlemen who've lost their wives, and Alzheimer's, I think, was at play. It is sad, and it's a real neurological, physiological problem. It gets lumped into the DSM, which kind of gives the DSM more credence and believability, because that's an actual real situation, where some of these other labels are just constructs and ideas and theories. That one, Alzheimer's, is real, and it tends to make the DSM. I'm sad when the money is wasted, because they could have found some things that might have helped, or who knows. But here's what the article said. Some look like, talking about the research, Some look like shockingly blatant. That's what the article quotes. Examples of image tampering, says Donna Wilcock, an Alzheimer's expert at the University of Kentucky, the state I live in. The authors appeared to have composed figures by piecing together parts of photos from different experiments, says another molecular biologist. And so the obtained experimental results might not have been the desired results, and that data might have been changed to better fit a hypothesis. So that's the claim, and these are people that are researching it, looking at it, and saying this just was fudged. It was, to fit the narrative, to fit the hypothesis that they wanted it to fit. So
I just saw a documentary, a mini series on that. I don't know, on something very similar. Did you see that thing? I think it's on Netflix or Hulu or something. You know that Elizabeth Smart. You ever
yeah.
You ever watch that series on her?
Part of it, yeah.
I mean, basically, she had this invention and she kept claiming, making all these claims and just getting people to pour in all kinds of money to it, and it never worked. It was never gonna work, and she just kept lying and fudging, and it wasn't her alone. You had to have a lot of people helping her out with that,
Right.
to be able to do that. So
Right.
What was all that? That was all driven by money and pride, and it's like people will go to some amazing lengths, man.
They will. Well, one more little article to talk about, and then we'll wrap up. There was a lady named Loni Willison. Have you ever heard of her? I had not. People send me these kind of things, and it's good. The name of the article is, "She used to be one of Hollywood's elite, but now she's living on the streets." And it came out August 1st, 2022. Her name was Loni Willison. She was a celebrity just a few years ago, 37-year-old woman now, famously married to Baywatch star Jeremy Jackson from 2012 to 2014. In the article, he divorced her. It sounds like she's kind of hurt and bitter by that, which divorce is so awful. It is so painful. We just kind of, they're divorced, but it's painful. And so they spotted her on the streets. I think she was asking for money. She's homeless, has been homeless since 2016, began experimenting with drugs, crystal meth, got addicted. Life began to spiral out of control. She reported everything crumbled because of drugs. She lost 2 jobs, and her mental health was going down the toilet. That's what the article says. And she was begging on the street, wearing a baseball cap, and they have pictures of her like now and before. I mean, just stark contrast in the way she looks now versus how she looked then. She didn't want to talk about her husband or ex-husband. And here's what she said. This is what I wanted to bring up. She says, "I can live on my own. I've got everything I need right here." So she's homeless. Nobody really cares about me, and I don't want to see them. They don't want to see me. I haven't got a cell phone. I've got food. I've got a place to sleep. I get money here and there. There's food in the bins and near the stores. There's lots here. And then she says at the very end, "I lost 2 jobs." Here, the last thing. So a drug rehab specialist named Larry Marinelli, the owner of True Intention Sober Living Home, tried to help her. He offered to help her and tried to give her a plan to help her battle her addiction. She refused and was back on the street within 24 hours. And that's how it ends. So your thoughts about this very sad, all these articles are sad. In this case, it made the news because somebody saw her living homelessly on the streets versus she was a model years ago. 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's so that is a real illustration on why your hope should not be in that they're going to take away, be able to find some medication or something to take away the desire, right?
Right.
Because this has always been the mystery that people just can't understand when they look through human beings on like a biological lens that struggle with addiction, right? So you get somebody like this person, and back in the days before there was Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that, you would get people that would drink themselves into these desperate pits of basically bondage, right? And they would hospitalize them. They would nourish them. They would see them bounce back to health, and they would be like people with great personalities, and you would just get them, and you talk with them about what their life was like before they brought them into the hospital, how they were like living in a ditch, and after months of treatment in the hospital and renourishment and all that kind of stuff, they would say, now this guy would never go back to doing that again. They would never go back to that lifestyle if taking a drink would bring them there. Now, they let them out, and what would happen? Within 24 hours, they would be drunk again,
Mm-hmm.
And they were 24 hours ago telling you they would never want to do that ever again.
Ever again. I'm never going back.
Right.
Yeah. So
how do you explain that? How do you explain that to somebody? Because I could literally, if you and I would both say there are definite physical components to addiction, right? Like if I shoot heroin for any period of time, I'm going to be physically dependent on it. And if I don't have it, then I'm going to want it. And my body's going to scream for it, right? And I could be in the most miserable state in the world and not really even want to do that, but I kind of have to do it or else I'm going to be sick, right? Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol is even worse, actually. If you're dependent on alcohol, you actually can't just stop. You have to actually be medically detoxed from alcohol because it's dangerous. So anyway, but after going through all that misery and getting healthy again, if that was the answer, was that the physical desire or the physical pull was just so strong that they were trapped in it, you can untrap people from that, right? You could do that. You could lock them in a facility and keep them there for a year and give them great education and all the food and exercise they want. And then as soon as you let them out, what's going to happen? That's the thing they can't. That's the thing they can't figure out. And now they want to tell you it's this strong urge and a strong desire. Really? Is that going to be what it is? I mean, someone that's gotten all their health back, and are you saying that there's such a physical pull after 1 year of being away from that substance or however much time you want to put in that they can't say no? No, there's a whole bunch of things that go in like they may have a desire, right, Mark? But do they tell anybody they have a desire? Nope, they don't. How many steps do they have to take in order to go after that desire? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not just like, oh, I got this desire and I'm like, following it like a zombie. There's all kinds of steps that have to go in play. Yeah. They will say, I have this desire, but my life got ruined last time, and they have to make a choice. They're like, I have a desire, but I don't have money in my pocket, so I have to go to the ATM. I have a desire, but I have to call up my drug dealer in order to meet them at this place, and I have to get a car, and I have to put gas in it, and I have to go there, and I have to get my paraphernalia, and I have to do all of that stuff. So there's all kinds of choices that are made all along the way. And until they start realizing, why is somebody doing that? why is somebody doing that? Which we need to help people talk about their motivations, their heart's desires, and where their desires should be, and where they should be going to, how their life should be motivated. And God has those answers. The world doesn't have those answers, right?
No.
The world doesn't have those answers. They will tell you actually probably the opposite stuff. Like, you just need to think more positively about yourself, and you need to, there's all kinds of self-help stuff that all comes involved there. They try to fix you there. So yeah, this is a living example of something that's very, very sad, but ultimately, nobody's pointing that person to where her desire should be. No one's
Right.
helping her, helping speak to her heart motivation. Nobody is probably praying that she needs a new heart,
Yeah. That's what I was going to say is we need to pray for her. And then you look at nobody loves me. Well, that's why the local church is so important. We offer love, the love of Christ, and really we should be functioning to love each other. That's why I think people do like the 12-step meetings. They feel acceptance and some measure of love in those
Absolutely.
meetings. And so we want to be, as a church body, someone who loves this young lady, who isn't just trying to take advantage of her. I mean, sounds like she was discarded by her husband. Maybe there's more to that story. I don't know, but it sounds like she didn't want the divorce. But one of the things I get to do is meet with people and try to encourage them. Please don't divorce, at this point. Let's try to work. And we're talking about regular marriage problems, not severe issues and stuff that may warrant a divorce, biblical grounds for divorce. But I can talk to people and say, let's give it a shot. Let's go for this. Let's come alongside and assign people in my church to meet with them and to talk with them, encourage them and love them. And so, Loni Willison is her name. She was the Australian Glam Fit magazine cover girl at one point in her life, and is now, struggling as a homeless person, and not even struggling. She's just living as a homeless person, and refusing help. But it's not the kind of help that you and I can offer through our programs and our churches, because I know your program's connected to the church. We have the answer. It's not us, it's Christ and his body, the local church, for people like Loni. And so I bring that up, and I appreciate what you do at Carries Home, or Carry Home. You say Carry Home?
Carries.
Carries.
And it's spelled really funny. It's spelled K-A-R-I-S.
K-A-R-I-S. Carries Home.
Yep, Carries Home.
Is it apostrophe S?
Mm-hmm.
Carries Home. Yeah. So it's Carries Home. Yeah. Well, I said it right. Look at me. And I doubted myself, said it wrong 3 times. But but I appreciate the work you're doing there with women. It's hard. I mean, men or women, it's hard. But having an addiction program where you're discipling people who are kind of like Loni, like they don't feel loved, they are living on the streets, they're making all kind of choices, and it can be an overwhelming sense of guilt and shame. And we want to help take that away through Jesus Christ. We can't take it away, but we want to help those ladies to see that they are made in the image of God, that they have purpose, that they have value, that maybe people, their ex-husband, their world, whatever, hasn't valued them, but we value and love them and want to help them. And so I appreciate Carries Home and all the work you do there, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, and that caveat, you like what you were just saying, that's the attraction to a lot of the AA meetings and things like that are that there are people that ultimately want to care for you and love you. And you see, there's quite a few still stories like that. There's one in the NBA, one of the famous ex-NBA guys. He's like homeless, and like his other NBA guys are trying to like kind of bring him back in and bring him to practice and stuff like that. I forgot the name. I have to look it up later. But ultimately, that stuff will not suffice. Like, I can't love somebody into sobriety. I love them because that's what God called me to do, but I need to point them to where their love needs to come from. So that's where a lot of these other things are left, are they leave people and they will ultimately fail because you can't love someone like God can love them. You can't work on someone's heart or encourage them like God can. So we are vessels to point people. We love people, yes. Make them feel wanted, yes, but we ultimately can't be their savior. They need him. So
yeah, I'm going to a counseling meeting after this, and I'm going to be praying, Lord, I need you to show them your love. I need you to work in their hearts. I need you, I'm going to do all I can. And I believe he works through me, and yes, I can be loving and that kind of thing, but God, I need you to really do a work here in this heart. And I love that because he does, he's faithful, not maybe as quickly as I want or, whatever, but he definitely is faithful to do whatever he wants to do. And I'm just praying, crying out, and he is a good God. He is loving. So we'll pray for this Loni. Don't know her, but it's very sad to read that, or the NBA person you mentioned, or ex-NFL players, or whoever, baseball players. I mean, they become celebrities, and the world just thinks that they should be perfect because they're celebrities. They have it all, the good looks, the money, the this, the that, and that's the all that they have. When we know really all you need is a relationship where you are placing your faith and trust in Jesus Christ and him alone. That's all you need. That's really what being a celebrity is all about, is you have Jesus Christ and you don't have to strive for fame and money and all that kind of stuff. So, all right. Well, Jim, thank you, brother, for being on here, helping me do this podcast.
Always fun, man. Always a pleasure.
Yes. And we will do it again. So
I hope so.
Unless we get censored or canceled, that can always happen.
Yeah. Especially with things you say. So.
Yeah, I know. I have been censored and canceled now twice in my life. So they've gotten me twice, but I wear that as a badge of honor. So, all right. Well, take care and God bless.
God bless.